now time, the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Caligiero, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay, and I hope you're safe, too. Today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant, located on beautiful St. Simon's Island in Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.italianpizzeria.com. Let me take two. Check out his website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Find out why I go all the way to St. Simon's for an authentic Italian meal. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week pure boxing channel. That's right, the Billy C channel is available now on all the major streaming devices, including Roku, etc., etc. Just visit GinnicoUSA.com to sign up for you account free today. Ginnico USA, GINIKO USA.com. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by Kenny Bear's Barbecue Rub and all the great products from Southern Gourmet Spice. Check it out, www.southerngourmets.com. Make sure you tell them Billy C sent you and demand the Billy C discount. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by the Title Bout Championship computer game, which is an important thing because we're going to be doing some simulations today. So get yourself a copy of it now, especially the way things are in the world right now. You may want to do some simulations of current fighters versus all-time greats, etc. Title Bout Championship computer game. Get yourself a copy. Visit our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the banner. And finally, you know I wasn't going to let a show go by without this. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by my book. Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. You can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Just visit BarnesandNoble.com or Amazon.com. Or if you want a signed copy, just visit our website, BillyCBoxing.com. Or if you're looking to get a discount, special, me signing it the way you want it, just drop me an email, billy@talkinboxing, TalkinBoxing.com. Coming up a little bit, I'm having a hard time talking today. Coming up a little bit later, we got my man Dax Khan, we got Alex Papali. Hopefully Emily Harney will join us, and haven't been able to get a hold of my man Sal, but hopefully we can get him back and going. Listen, remember, if you are watching or listening live, don't forget that the same version of this show that gets uploaded to the television channels is what's running up on YouTube. So if you haven't seen it up on YouTube, our live YouTube channel, check it out, youtube.com/talkinboxing, TalkinBoxing. It's actually youtube.com/talkinboxing. But anyway, coronavirus has postponed the Anthony Joshua Pulov fight. It was scheduled in June, and it's been canceled. It's been postponed. They have not given a date yet, but rumor has it that they're trying to work out a Anthony Joshua Deontay Wilder fight prior to, I should say, check that, an Anthony Joshua Tyson Fury fight prior to Anthony Joshua fighting Pulov, and prior to Tyson Fury fighting the third, who personally I don't think we need to see Tyson Fury beat up Deontay Wilder again, but all depending upon step-aside money that Pulev and Deontay Wilder would accept and or agree to step aside. So we'll see what happens with that. All of Matchroom boxing events that had been scheduled between now and through the month of May are all canceled due to the coronavirus. So some of the big fights that we're looking at, like Dillian White and Povetkin and Usyk and Derek Chisora, all put off. So we'll keep you posted on that. Speaking about being put off, how about the International Boxing Hall of Fame? Typically in June is the induction weekend, and that's been canceled. As a matter of fact, they said it was postponed, but they're already talking about having that the class being inducted the following year with the next year's inductees. B-Hop, Juan Manuel Marquez, Sugar Shane Mosley were the top more modern fighters that are going to be entered in this year, was scheduled to, as well as Lou DiBella, my girl Kathy Duva, and Dan Goosen, all being in. And Thomas Hauser finally getting in. I'm surprised that it took so long for my man Mr. Hauser to get in. But anyway, Tyson Fury had an interesting interview over the last week or so, 2 weeks. He's been asked, are you looking forward to fighting Deontay Wilder a third time? This fight's already been put into motion. It was scheduled for July, but that's already put off. Looking at October. Many of us, including myself specifically, when I say us, all of us, because I'm a fat bastard. But the truth of the matter is I have no interest in watching Tyson Fury take care of Deontay Wilder again. I believe he won the first time, and he demolished Deontay in the second fight. I don't think anything is going to change. Maybe just the way he wins. But as according to Tyson Fury, he said he's never going to get tired of beating up Deontay Wilder. He said, and I quote, I'll be obliged to give him a bit more. You never tire of beating Deontay Wilder. It's one of those things you take great pride in doing. This is Tyson Fury. He says, I really did what I said I was going to do, and not many people in boxing say something, then exactly do what they said they were going to do. So I was quite proud of my performance, and I really look forward to getting all this coronavirus out of the way and getting the world back on track, getting back to my job. Which he also added, he's been trying to stay in shape. I've spoken to a couple of fighters, and that seems to be the big hurdle. How do you stay in shape? How do you still work out? Gyms are closed, et cetera, et cetera. When he was asked about staying in shape, and he's home with his wife, his beautiful wife, Paris, and they have 5 kids. He says it's simple. He says it's actually difficult because obviously I'm not allowed to go to the gyms to train. However, I've been doing every morning a workout video live on Instagram. He says we do a 50-minute workout. It helps me stay in shape, and it helps many, many other people out there who join in from all over the world. I'm grateful that I can have an input on helping people with their fitness and mental health problems during these locked down times. I also have Paris here, my kids. Everyone goes nuts in the front room while we're working out. So it seems that my man Tyson Fury is doing what he can to stay mentally and physically fit. Amir Khan on Friday was saying that he was thinking about retiring, and he said, to be honest with you, I'd love one more fight, maybe 2. He says he thinks he has several fights left in him. As a matter of fact, he said, I have a couple of fights left in me, 1 or at least 2. He says, the biggest fights are the ones that motivate me. When you've made so much money and won all the world titles, what's going to motivate you? A Manny Pacquiao fight is huge wherever it was. Then you have Kell Brook, another massive fight in the UK. So he's targeting Manny and Kell Brook. He says, I want to fight. We just don't know how long this coronavirus thing is going to last. So we'll see what happens. They're looking to get a fight against Manny Pacquiao. Bob Arum. Now, Bob Arum is, 170, 180 years old? I don't know. But he has promoted over 2,000 shows, almost 2,100, 2,079 to be exact. He's been in boxing for 54 years. So he actually started a little later than I thought. His first fight ever was took place on March 29th, 1966. It was Muhammad Ali defending his title against George Chuvalo. Interesting fight when you look at his resume. 2,079 fights, 824 were on Showtime. He promoted 655 world title fights, and then it just goes on and on. 517 in Nevada, 412 in Jersey, California, Texas. The only shows that he's never promoted, the only states he's never promoted a fight in, is Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Kansas, South Dakota, Vermont, Virginia, and Wyoming. I actually did one in Vermont before they got rid of it. But one other interesting thing, he promoted the Evel Knievel jump over Snake River Canyon. I remember watching that on TV. He would have made it if he didn't hit the button. He drifted over. He claims that the parachute, Evel I'm talking about, claims that the parachute malfunctioned. But if you watch the video, as he was taking off, the parachute was already deployed as he was taking off of from the ramp thing that he had. It was like a rocket ship. So he actually shot across the Snake River with the parachute and then kind of drifted over and crashed. But anyway, I got an email. This one is from my man Alex Smith. He says, "Hey Billy, the fight you were thinking of last week, Dokes versus Razor Ruddock. Dokes got blown out in 1990, or maybe you're thinking of the Bo Dokes in 1993, but Dokes was shot by then. Thanks for doing the show. We need it. Thank you." And I got another email from my longtime listener and buddy. He's a Miami Dolphin fan, but I won't hold that against him. My man Rick. I actually don't have his actual email to read, but I'll paraphrase. He basically liked us doing the title bout breakdowns. And last week, in case you missed it, we did Deontay Wilder against Anthony Joshua, and then Anthony Joshua against Tyson Fury. And then we did Deontay Wilder against Andy Ruiz. We all gave our predictions, and then we took care of business when Alex got on and did the title bout, gave us the results on title bout. So what we're going to do today is basically the same thing, except as per request from Rick. He wanted us to do Duran. He wanted us to do Floyd Mayweather Jr. Now, he knows I'm not a big fan of Floyd Mayweather Jr., but he thought it would be interesting to see us do a Floyd Mayweather Jr. Day of title bout. So what we did was I decided that I would put Floyd Mayweather. So people are always talking about the last great era in boxing. And I just want to mention to everybody before I get into that, because I'm going to start getting on a flow here. Don't forget to order. You guys hear me talking all the time about Kenny Bears, right? the barbecue rub that I'm addicted to. I don't know what Kenny puts in the stuff, but I can't live without it. But he came out with 2 new items that you can get right now by going to southerngourmetspice.com. An all-purpose salt, Kenny Bear's all-purpose salt, and my new favorite, Kenny Bear's Blackened seasoning. This stuff is great, man. If you guys haven't gotten a bottle of this yet, and don't forget, he's got his regular Kenny Bear's barbecue rub that made him famous. I'll tell you what made him famous was a ad that we did. Actually, I didn't do it, but LDL TV produced an ad with him dressed as Tinkerbell. I'll see if I can get a copy of that. Some of the music that they play in the background is not actually acceptable on our networks that we're on because of licensing infringement. But I'll see if I can get you guys a copy of that. That's worth watching this show just to see Kenny in a Tinkerbell outfit. But the truth of the matter is, this stuff is the best. Get yourself a bottle today. Visit southerngourmetspice.com and find out why I can't put the stuff down. I put it on everything. I put it on burgers. I put it on chicken. I put it on pizza. I put it on pork. Anything that I eat, I put the Kenny Bear's products on. So check it out. And I'm not just saying it. But anyway, I decided to do Floyd Mayweather Jr. against what many regard as the last great era of boxing, the 1980s. And during the 1980s, we had the Fab-four. And the Fab-four was basically Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Tommy Hearns, and Marvin Hagler. So, me thinking, and I'm saying to myself, well, maybe we should all do that. So, what we decided we would do would be put Floyd Mayweather Jr. up against these 4 guys in 4 different weight classes. So we're going to start off with putting him up against Roberto Duran and at lightweight. You've heard us talk about Roberto Duran. Many people think of him as a welter because they saw him fight Sugar Ray Leonard, but this guy, that was like his second part of his career. He fought till he was 50. I'll get to that in a second. We're going to put Floyd Mayweather Jr. up against Sugar Ray Leonard at welterweight. And we'll put, at junior middleweight, we'll put Floyd against Tommy Hearns. And then at middleweight, we'll put Marvin Hagler. One other thing I want to mention about Floyd Mayweather is his daughter. They say, what do they say? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But his daughter, Yaya Mayweather, which I guess she's a social media superstar or something. So it's considered a celebrity. I never heard of her other than just being his daughter. But apparently she was arrested the other night for stabbing her boyfriend's baby's mother. And not with one, but with 2 kitchen knives. She was arrested and freed on bail. She's got to return Monday, tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. But joining us right now, we'll start off with him, getting his thoughts on these fights, is my man Dax Khan. Good morning, Dax.
Hey, good morning. How's everybody?
Well, I'm doing okay. I thought it was going to be another nice day, but so far not so much. But I know you were a little hesitant to do these matchups, but I do think they're fun. And I can't believe I'm gonna get off this for 1 second. What's with Winky Wright, man? How did Winky Wright become like this superstar knockout puncher? He didn't even knock people out in his career, and he beat Carlos Monzon. Before that, he beat Sugar Ray Leonard. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, look, this was developed to give fight fans something to talk about while there was no boxing. And I've had this debate with people on social media who have all said the same thing. When Winky was active, he wasn't a knockout artist. But now, go along with the mentality of today's fans. If you go on YouTube And if you Google, take the original, the heavyweight Legends tournament where they had Butterbean in there and David Haye, and people were saying, well, how did David Haye and Butterbean somehow get in there with Joe Frazier, Holyfield, Lewis, Tyson, Foreman, etc.? Well, because you know what? Today's fan, they actually sit and they debate that. If you go on Google, on YouTube, again, there's actually people who made videos on who would have won a fight between Butterbean and Mike Tyson in Mike Tyson's prime. Remember, Butterbean actually did at some point in time say he could beat Mike Tyson in a 4-rounder. So, the people over at Camosa AG and Sauerland, they did their homework. They know what the fans have been talking about, no matter how absurd it is. And so, they just did something there to make people think and give them something to talk about. As for Winky Wright knocking people out, yeah, it's a stretch, Winky, especially if he was ever pressured, Winky shelled up. He was such a great defensive fighter. But, it's not irrational to think that Winky could beat any of those guys. I just think the shocker is that the game somehow had him by knockout. But again, this was all in fun. It was to give something for the fans to talk about, debate about why there's no boxing, mission accomplished, and the fans just taking it a little bit too seriously.
All right, so Dax, we have Floyd Mayweather in our fantasy matchups, and I wanted to put him first against Roberto Duran in the lightweight division. So I think it's important to look at these fights at the divisions that we're putting them against. So Floyd Mayweather obviously fought in the lightweight division, and I have him against Roberto Duran. What's your thoughts if you could come up with a time machine and bring back a prime lightweight Floyd Mayweather against a prime lightweight Roberto Duran? How do you see it going?
Well, you got to figure that was two different versions of Floyd Mayweather. That lightweight, that was the money Mayweather. So,
and he was an aggressive fight. That's the era that, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's the era of Floyd Mayweather that really showcased his talent. If he continued to fight in that style, I don't think there would be no one like myself who criticizes him, because he was exciting then. I remember watching him, and he was fast. He went in for the kill. He was exciting. He just lost all of that when he became Money Mayweather.
Well, he didn't lose it. He just chose to fight defensively. Whether or not you like it, Bill, whether or not anybody else likes it, it doesn't matter. Point of the matter is, he went out there, he did his job, the sweet science. I have never been, a huge Floyd Mayweather fan, but you can't take nothing away from him, period.
No. Well, that goes without saying.
You can dislike, but you just can't take nothing away from him. People, including you, and me and you've had this conversation a million times off air, a lot of people have to just get over this thing where they insist that fighters from past eras are better than fighters in today, and you're going to beat fighters from today. And guys from eras in the past were so much tougher. They ate nails for breakfast in the morning without milk and all that. Stop. Get over it. Take the 154-pound division, for example. Look at the guys from, since you mentioned Winky Wright, that's why I bring up the 154-pound division, and Fernando Vargas, who was also in that middleweight tournament. He got knocked out by Sugar Ray Robinson. Now, take those guys and put them in against a Jarrett Hurd or a Charlo. Even if, they're more skilled, the fact of the matter is there's that natural size difference. Like the heavyweight division, look the size of heavyweights today. There, you have that size difference, and then you add that skill level in there, and then all of a sudden, you know what? You got good big men against very great smaller men, and the good big men most likely are going to win every single time. So we as boxing fans need to stop with the fantasy that every single fighter pre-1990 is going to beat every fighter afterwards.
Well, not every, but a lot. And a lot of the rules have changed too. So the reason why Jarrett Hurd can be so big and step in the ring at 170 pounds when he's fighting at junior middleweight limit of 154 is because of the weigh-in rules difference. They used to weigh in the same day and all that. So putting those rules aside, Floyd Mayweather against Roberto Duran at lightweight, how do you see it going?
Well, since Floyd Mayweather was a more aggressive fighter, I can see him, trading with Roberto Duran. Remember the fight that Floyd had with Castillo, where most people believe that, Floyd lost that fight. Roberto Duran is a much better version, more aggressive and skilled fighter than Jose Luis Castillo. So at lightweight, I'd have to go with Roberto Duran.
I don't doubt it. I don't. All you have to do is go watch Duran at lightweight, and if no one has ever watched him at lightweight, because like I opened up the show, a lot of people think of Roberto Duran. The first fight that when I bring up Roberto Duran's number and I talk to him, what do you think the first fight people say? I know you're going to get this out of the gate, Dax, but what's the first fight that people mention when you mention Roberto's name?
Leonard, the No Mas.
No Mas, exactly. I hear people that have never really watched his early fights, and they bring up, well, he quit the No Mas fight. It's like, man, even the quitting, which we crucified the man for during the time and for 20 years after, wasn't. It was more of out of frustration than anything else. Not that I'm making an excuse, but
yes. Now, Bill, not to interrupt you, but take that fight right there. Think about Vasyl Lomachenko and the guys that he made. Think about Lomachenko versus Rigondeaux, who is a great fighter, and how Lomachenko made him quit. I think 3 or 4 guys in a row, quality fighters that Lomachenko made quit. And do you think that those guys are ever going to be fully remembered for the time that Lomachenko made them quit? But no, it was kind of like the same thing. It was a little bit different because, Roberto Duran was frustrated because he wanted Leonard to stand there and trade with him. And with Lomachenko, the guys were just like, you know what? They were frustrated. They knew they were outclassed. They were getting hit. They were embarrassed, and they ended up quitting. So again, that goes back to my point on fans. We got to be a little bit fair here, I think if we're going to sit there and crucify somebody like Duran in 20 years, and when Rigondeaux's name is mentioned, I think maybe the first thing fans should start saying is, remember the time he quit against Lomachenko? Or we should stop, criticizing Duran for it.
I want to take a second here to give a shout out to the Philippines. Apparently, we got several viewers and listeners in the chat room from the Philippines, which I think is cool. So I appreciate you guys stopping by. All right, Floyd Mayweather Jr. at welterweight going up against Sugar Ray Leonard. I was surprised to see Leonard in any kind of game lose to Winky Wright. And the reason is Sugar Ray Leonard, I'm going to get more into it after, and all these fighters in a little bit later. I just want to get your thoughts. But I will say this about Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard, although he was a skilled boxer, he mixed it up too. He got in there, and Sugar Ray Leonard fought pretty aggressively at times. To think of him against Floyd Mayweather Jr. at welterweight, I think actually would be a fantastic matchup, if not really the best one of this list. And the reason why I say that is because, I don't think Floyd is going to outbox Sugar Ray. Not that Sugar Ray... What I was going to say is not that Sugar Ray could outbox Floyd. I think that they were very similar in their boxing technique. I do think Floyd's... Now, my opinion of Floyd's defense isn't like a Lomachenko defense. Lomachenko is standing right in front of you and you can't hit the guy. Floyd runs to the other side. He can't hit his opponent either with his defense. Sugar Ray Leonard had a very deceiving defense. And I think that Sugar Ray Leonard clearly had more punching power. What's your thoughts on a Mayweather-Sugar Ray Leonard matchup at welterweight?
Yes, agree. Ray Leonard, I'm glad you did say about the boxing part. That's what I was going to interject with. Ray Leonard, he could be outboxed. Remember the first Tommy Hearns fight? Tommy Hearns was outboxing Ray, and then Ray did exactly what you said, where he could be aggressive. That's when Ray had to more or less, he totally changed his style. He became the puncher, which is what Tommy Hearns entered as, was the puncher, and then Ray ended up knocking Tommy out. Another thing that people forget is Ray was a very big welterweight. People think that Errol Spence is a big welterweight. Ray Leonard was a big welterweight, and he had some punching power, and that was a debate. One of the things that people brought up with the Winky Wright fight was that, Winky wouldn't have had the power to keep Ray off of him. So I think that Ray, he would have fought a tactical fight against Floyd, But, I think that Ray would not have been thrown off by the shoulder roll, which is what Floyd, that was Floyd bread and butter, using that shoulder roll, with a lot of catch and shoot, and that's how he scored his points. But I think Ray would find a way to outpoint Floyd, unless Floyd sat in the middle of the ring and, tried to go toe-to-toe with him, which he did with Shane Mosley at times. But Ray, being the bigger and stronger fighter, would have overcame that, and I think their fight would have went very much like Ray Leonard and Floyd Sr., with Ray coming out on top.
Well, Floyd Sr., and people always laugh at me about this, and you're included, but I think if you could go back in a time machine and put Floyd Sr. against Floyd Jr., I'd put my money on Sr., and the reason why is because he did have more pop than Jr. Jr. did not have any pop, although he did. His accumulation would stop people, and again, at the younger, at the lower weights, he was definitely, when he was when he was Pretty Boy Floyd, he was much more aggressive. But so I'm sorry, who wins Sugar Ray Leonard?
And he was a small welterweight, compared to these other guys. With all fairness, compared to Sugar Ray, compared to Tommy Hearns, Floyd Mayweather was a small welterweight. Small welterweight compared to Errol Spence or even Keith Thurman.
See, I can't stand when people say how small he was, because they were talking about that when people were trying to entice the Floyd Mayweather Jr. against Triple G, and they all kept saying, "Oh, Triple G, way too big, way too big, way too big."
And your first defense on that is, well, Triple G's a small middleweight, so
Triple G, I think, could fight at 154, and Floyd won a title at 154. So, I don't think that he was that small. I think I think all his fanboys were saying that as an excuse, but that's my opinion. Who did you pick? Floyd Mayweather Jr. against Sugar Ray Leonard. Who wins?
I think Ray, because he's so versatile, and I point to the first Tommy Hearns fight where Ray turned into the puncher. I think it would be that versatility, the size difference, where Ray outpoints Floyd. I don't think he knocks him out. I think he outpoints Floyd. Interesting.
At junior middleweight,
because remember. And the reason why I say that, for anybody, for the ones that are ready to crucify me on that, is look at how Marcos Maidana swarmed Floyd. He really kept Floyd's defense, his offensive output to a minimum. So, I can see Ray doing exactly that.
That's interesting. Hey, I want to give a shout out to my man Joel. Joel is always thinking of us. He wants to make sure we're all well, and he's thanking us for doing the show, entertaining us, but he always hooks us up with a super chat, and I want to give my best to my man Joel, one of our favorite viewers and listeners for sure. Tommy Hearns, and in Floyd Mayweather's defense, Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns both went up in weight and actually won titles in much larger weight classes. Both of them ended up with a light heavyweight title. And I think Tommy Hearns even had some cruiserweight title at one point. But Tommy Hearns, I always loved Tommy Hearns. I mean, there was just something about him. To this day, I love him. And I would have loved to have seen Tommy Hearns fight Floyd Mayweather. And, the question, the age-old question with Floyd, assuming that he is, money Mayweather, would he have even fought these guys? And that's the other thing. He has traditionally run, and no, I don't mean physically run, but avoid these top fighters, at least when they were in their prime. These four guys all fought each other, in their primes, or at least at the heyday. I mean, Hagler never returned after the Sugar Ray Leonard fight, but Tommy Hearns was around, loved the guy, treated us to some great fights with all of these fellas that we have in this mix. How does he fare against Floyd Mayweather? Should the time machine be able to bring us back and have Tommy go up against Floyd at junior middleweight?
That would be an interesting fight. Floyd would not be able to sit on the ropes and use the shoulder roll with Tommy, simply because, Tommy Hearns had such brutal one-punch knockout power, and you take the Tommy Hearns versus Roberto Duran fight, for example, when he just totally starched Duran and just laid him on his face. So, that's very much what I would see happening with Tommy versus Floyd. But on the other hand, too, I can also see where Floyd makes Tommy chase him all night. So that's a close fight. It's a toss up. I'm not really sure who I'd be able to pick in this one, but I would have to say that at that weight, because Floyd was a defensive fighter, at 147 pounds going on up, that Tommy ends up catching him on the ropes. And Tommy Hearns, out of the Fab-four, a lot of people will disagree with me, but he was the best pure boxer out of the Fab-four.
Tommy Hearns.
Tommy Hearns was the best boxer out of all of them. You go back and watch all their fights. When it came to boxing, Tommy Hearns was the best boxer out of all of them, and that's why I referenced the very first Hearns-Leonard fight, when Hearns was just totally outboxing Leonard, and Leonard had to turn into the aggressor. Tommy's weak point was his chin, and going late into fights, he had a little bit of a stamina problem.
Yeah, that's because of his upper body was so muscular. And those legs, he could never. I know he worked the legs.
He had them skinny legs. He had them Deontay Wilder legs.
He had, and he worked them. They were muscle bound, but they were so small, and they failed him. And you're 100% right. I agree. But he is very similar to Deontay Wilder, in my opinion, in terms of freakish punching power. For his size, I'm not so sure anybody could punch as hard as he could. When he fought Marvin Hagler. And we learned a decade later he broke his hand in that first round where he rocked Hagler. That was the first time I ever saw Hagler even get rocked. I mean, even close to being rocked. I mean, he was staggered in that fight, that was the best 3 live rounds of boxing I ever witnessed. But anyway, speaking of Hagler,
yeah, and that was, and let's be honest. I mean, and that was probably 3 of the most exciting rounds of all time. But that wasn't really like those weren't 3 skilled rounds, and that's what frustrates me, Bill. And us, our job, having a show like this and talking to the fans, especially the younger fans, we have to be a little bit honest. That there was no real boxing. That was just fighting. That was pure fighting. And you hear these people talk about it was so skilled and it was a skilled brutality. No, Tommy Hearns and Marvin Hagler just fought for 3 rounds. When you look at that, that was just an all-out, as Jim Ross would say, slobber knocker.
I don't know, man. Sometimes. Those kinds of fights, if you want to really pinpoint and look at skill and all of that, that's great. But a lot of times you got to look deep, and they're not exciting. Here and that. And
it was exciting. I mean, but
what I'm saying,
skill-wise.
But what I'm saying is that those 2 fighters who definitely possess skill, especially Tommy Hearns, styles make fights, fighters make fights. And, that fight was billed as the war, and it certainly lived up to it. And I love it. I thought it was great. And quite honestly, I like those kind of fights. I know that doesn't display skill set, but it displays skin and defense. Chin, I should say.
Oh, sure, absolutely. I mean, that's, my point is that, those 3 rounds they were exciting. They were 3 of the most brutal rounds that anybody's ever going to see. It's just, it wasn't like a master boxing class. In fact, if you wanted to, it wasn't quite as violent, but the first the Manny Pacquiao and Juan Manuel Marquez fight, when they traded their knockdowns in that early rounds, and that was not only was there a lot of violence in there, but those guys actually boxed at a higher level in that round.
And finally, at middleweight, which I've always thought Floyd could have fought at. I know he did he ever fight at middleweight? Did Floyd ever step in at 160? Okay. I'm trying. Did he ever fight heavier than 154?
No, he might have fought at 155.
Yeah. Okay. You mean Canelo's weight class? When Canelo had when Canelo changed the middleweight limit to 155, 154.5. I don't know, but
I don't. I think Floyd's highest weight might have been like 152 or 153 or something like that. I don't know. He has a small frame. We have to remember that Floyd started out as a super featherweight.
Yeah.
Or maybe even a featherweight, if I'm not mistaken.
He's 5'8", same height as all these guys except for.
Ella Playa started out at that same weight too. So.
Against Hagler at middleweight, how's he do?
I actually think at middleweight, I actually think he beats Hagler.
I was really that fight. I'm not going to argue too much because, the thing about Hagler, and I think we all have to look at the Sugar Ray Leonard fight when you think about Hagler against Floyd Mayweather, and against a good boxer. I mean, Hagler was a great, no question, an all-time great. But against pure boxers, he had some trouble. I don't know if I agree because of one thing. I think you make a great point, and I was on the fence with this one. Out of the fights, I was on the fence with this one. And the one reason why I have a tendency, and I'll give you my predictions later, but one of the tendencies I lean towards Hagler is that he was fantastic at cutting the ring off, Dax. And I think that would have helped him against Floyd. I'm assuming Floyd runs. I'm assuming Floyd tries to nail, score a couple of punches and then get out of harm's way. I think Hagler, of all of these fights, of all of these fighters, Hagler and Duran actually cut the ring off better than most. What's your thoughts on that?
Duran was and again, we go back to the lightweight version of Duran. He was just so tenacious, I guess, is the only word you can use. It was non-stop with Duran at that weight. You didn't have a second to breathe, and that's what made him so great. But at middleweight, what I think we would see is a combination of Floyd Mayweather, the guy that sits on the ropes and uses the shoulder roll, and added in with a little bit of that Floyd Mayweather, the pretty boy Floyd, where he uses his feet when he has to, and that's why he would frustrate and outbox Marvin Hagler. Of course, he's not going to knock him out, and we do know how tough Marvin was, but you hit it on the head. He had trouble with the boxers. Floyd Mayweather was versatile. We know he wasn't going to knock out Marvin Hagler. If Tommy Hearns couldn't do it, Anna Fermo couldn't do it, Floyd Mayweather Jr. certainly isn't doing it, but I could see Floyd Mayweather going around pot-shotting and winning a decision.
The other thing is he was a southpaw, and I mean, let's face it, Floyd Mayweather Jr. did not like fighting southpaws, but in any event. All right, so you basically give Floyd Mayweather a win over Hagler, but losses to the other three? Is that how it unshook?
And again, it depends at the weight. I think Floyd beats Duran at 147. I don't think he beats him at lightweight, and I think just Ray Leonard, he has too many tools. He's versatile like Floyd. He can be a defensive fighter or an offensive fighter, and I believe that because of that, with the size and his power, that Leonard is the one that will beat him. And I think with Tommy Hearns again, because he's such a good boxer and he has such power, either one of those methods, if Floyd would have stood there and try and trade with Tommy the way Tommy traded with Hagler, Floyd would end up getting knocked out. Floyd laid on the ropes. Tommy being, not only a hard puncher, but an accurate puncher, he'd catch him very much the way he caught Duran, and Floyd ended up on his face.
Well, I appreciate that. I know you wanted to mention something about the the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame committee.
Yeah, New York State Boxing Hall of Fame and Ring 8. This is a tough time for everybody, being out of work with the COVID-19 outbreak, the pandemic going on. What a lot of people forget, Bill, is that these fighters, not every fighter out there makes a lot of money, 'cause even a lot of these women have world titles, they've never made six figures. But, these fighters, especially these journeymen, they work full-time jobs. Mikel Lespierre. He fought for 140-pound world title against Maurice Hooker. He actually works at my doctor's office in Mount Sinai as a administrator. So these guys that they have families, they have bills to pay. So Ring 8 and the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame, what they're doing is they're actually helping out any fighters, trainers, coaches right now that are in need, trying to get over the hump. With some groceries, utilities, etc. For their families. If you contact Bob Duffy, who's a great guy, or you even contact Bob Trieger, get you the application, and they're not giving a lot of money, but it's a little stipend just to help people get by in this tough time. It's actually boxing looking out for boxing fighters, looking out for fighters, and they deserve a mention for that. They deserve, credit for that. And, at a time like this, everybody's coming together. I mean, they actually helped us out over at our gym just recently. So any fighter out there, who's going through some hard times, any coaches out there, you have to be a registered licensed coach that's having a hard time, they can go over to our website, BillyCBoxing.com. I have up there, I have the article and links on there. Get in touch with them. If you're in true need, and, they're going to help you get over that hump, in times like this. They helped out Brian Costello, who's a fighter, a pro fighter by me, and his fight over at the Catskills Clash 3 or 4, I forget what it is, but it was supposed to take place next week. That was canceled, so that kind of, put him in, in a bad spot. And New York State Boxing Hall of Fame and Ring 8 is reaching out there, and they're helping their own.
Well, that's good. I mean, I think, deeds like that should be publicized, and I'm glad you brought that up, because so often do we get the negativity about boxing, so that's good stuff. I'm glad you shared that with us. Dax, continue to get well, and we'll look forward to you next week.
Slowly but surely, I'm healing up. Let me tell you something. That virus is no joke. Let me tell you, Bill, it put me on my ass.
Yeah, well, it seemed to be doing that to a lot of people. So thanks for taking the time with us. We'll look forward to you next week.
All right, everybody, enjoy your day.
That's Dax Kine. You can check out his column up on BillyCBoxing.com, and especially responsible for getting all of the good stuff that we got, and all the other writers too. I'm not going to play any of them either. Jonathan does a great job, etc. But anyway, I want to know how high I am on the gourmet spice line of spices, but make sure you get yourself a bottle of each of them, and start off with my new favorite. One of the newer products is the Kenny Bear's Blackened seasoning. His all-purpose salt is second to none, and of course the original Kenny Bear's barbecue rub. Get yourself a bottle right now. Just go to southerngourmetspice.com and make sure you tell them Billy C sent ya. And joining us right now is my man Alex Papali. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Billy C. How are you?
I'm doing okay. In this crazy mixed-up world we live in. And I was kind of, we got a lot of positive response from the title bout that we did last week, which was cool. I know I talked a little about it with Dax, but they had the World Boxing Super Series had their version of the I guess matchups. I'm just shocked. Nothing against Winky Reich. I'm just shocked that he did so well. But one of our viewers and listeners asked to see Floyd Mayweather against some all-time greats. So I picked the Fab-four, and I figured you would be into that. And we all love all four of those fighters. And I'm going to go now with you and give you my thoughts before you give your opinion. And then, of course, the breakdown. The first fight we're going to look at is Roberto Duran going up against Floyd Mayweather Jr. at lightweight. Interesting thing, the computer ranks Floyd Mayweather Jr. as the number one pound-for-pound all-time great, which just nauseates me to no end. You know that, okay? Roberto Duran at lightweight is ranked, well, just Roberto Duran in general, is actually the second highest ranked fighter of the Fab-four that we're going to be talking about today, and he's at number 12, 11 spots below Floyd Mayweather. Now, when I take a look at Roberto Duran, I said earlier, Alex, that most people look at the No Mas fight as his, oh, that's Roberto Duran thing. But he had already been fighting for 10 years. The guy started in 1968. His first loss didn't come until 1972 against Esteban De Jesus. Jesus says. I'm really batting 1,000 today with the murdering of language, no matter which one. But he lost a 10-round decision to De Jesus in 1972. But one of the fights that I love the most, and I mean, when you look at this guy and the record that he had, I mean, wins over quality fighters, Lou Bizarro. He fought Esteban De Jesus 3 times. He had 2 wins and 1 loss. He's got wins over Carlos Palmero, Jimmy Batten, Pepino Cuevas, Davey Moore, Sean Fitzgerald, who in 1993 was already well past his prime, 17-0. I ran the Blade Barkley, which was talk about big middleweights. And the list goes on and on and on, especially earlier in his career. He beat every top contender that was out there. One of my favorite fights at lightweight was the win over Kenny Buchanan when he won the title in 1972. Kenny Buchanan still complains about that fight, but it was a great fight. I also watched all of the De Jesus fights, and you got to see a fighter in Roberto Duran who was an extremely good boxer. The worst part about Roberto Duran is the fact that most people remember him, like I said, in the Sugar Ray Leonard fights, and he had already been around for a decade. You got to really appreciate him as a lightweight. He was a vicious fighter. He would come in to kill you, but he could box, and his defense was solid. His last fight in 2001 against Hector Camacho, he lost a 12-round decision, went 12 rounds at 50 years old. I mean, and if it wasn't for the auto accident that punctured his lung, he said he was going to continue fighting. If he stepped in the ring at lightweight against Floyd Mayweather, and when I look at Floyd's record, yes, he had an impressive record even at lightweight, but never fought the guys. When he got his first title shot, never fought the guys leading up to that shot, Genaro Hernandez, that Roberto Duran fought at lightweight. I mean, Hector Arroyo might have been one of the best fighters that he fought. I mean, if you look at them based on their record, a lot of them had at least 4 losses all the way up until his world title fight. Then, he followed that with a demolishing of Angel Manfredi, who was well beat up. I remember watching the Justin Juco fight. Everyone criticized him for that. I mean, he became the cherry picker. Fought Oscar De La Hoya 10 years after he should have. Ricky Hatton was spent. Arturo Gotti, he was way bigger than. Chop Corley was already on his way out. I mean, I don't know, Alex, and I'm curious to get your opinion and then see how the game fares. But I don't think it would have been close. I disagree with Dax. Dax picked Roberto Duran, but I don't think it would have been close. I think Roberto Duran's boxing skill and his ability to cut the ring off, plus his viciousness, would have knocked out Floyd Mayweather at lightweight. And that's my opinion. I think he beats him. I would be shocked if the game doesn't say that. And I would be shocked if, you know what? I wouldn't be shocked because the game is going to obviously value Floyd's defensive abilities, which is basically just a track meet. I picked Duran to beat Floyd by knockout. That's my prediction. How did you see it? And then how did the game see it?
I think that Duran at lightweight was the most fearsome, was the greatest lightweight of all time, and I think in his career, those were his most fearsome. Some of his most fearsome victories were at lightweight. Although you could argue that the brawl in Montreal, the win over Sugar Ray Leonard, was one of his very best victories. But I kind of agree with you that the Esteban De Jesus fights and the Kenny Buchanan fights, that's prime Duran. And Duran was a fearsome symbol even to other fighters. Remember, there's that famous moment where Joe Frazier was doing the pay-per-view commentary for the brawl in Montreal, and the guy, the blow-by-blow announcer is sort of teasing Joe, sort of saying, who does Duran remind you of? It seemed like he was trying to elicit a response from Joe, like, he's a pressure fighter, he's a volume puncher, he's kind of like me. But Frazier looks at him and he goes, Charles Manson. So even fearsome fighters like Joe Frazier were afraid of Roberto Duran, because that's the kind of frightening figure he cut in the ring. And like you said, Kenny Buchanan thinks of Roberto Duran every time he makes water. And if you've watched that, I mean, that's one of the great things about this time for us, is that we're lucky to be fans of the sport that is by far the most rewatchable. And there's lots on YouTube. And you can get the Brawl in Montreal on YouTube. You can get Duran Buchanan on YouTube. You can get, I'm pretty sure you can get Floyd Mayweather versus Jesus Chavez. For me, I thought the best Floyd ever was at 130. Now, remember, at 135, he probably ran into arguably his toughest fight in Jose Luis Castillo. Was Duran better than Jose Luis Castillo? Yes. So I agree with you. I think Duran, I would favor Duran at lightweight, and so does the game. And want me to break it down?
Yeah, one thing I do want to say before you do that, if no one has ever seen the Roberto Duran De Jesus fights, you should check them out. Even the one that he lost shows a version of Duran that was a really good boxer. I mean, employing the jab and movement and viciousness. I mean, very hard. And I got to be honest, I was more of a Sugar Ray Leonard fan when Duran fought Sugar Ray Leonard. But as I went back and revisited, a lot of earlier stuff from Duran, I'm with you. I was always a big Barney Ross fan at lightweight. But, I've evolved into thinking that, Duran might have been the best lightweight ever. The way he fought at lightweight was the way all fighters should fight. But anyway, how did the game go?
Game agrees. When they fight the first time at 135 pounds, and let me just say for the record, we're talking 12-round fights. We're using the modern rules. 12-round fights, no 3 knockdown rule. You cannot be saved by the bell ever, and only the referee can stop the fight. No, you can switch it so the doctor can too. I make it so that the referee only. So according to those rules, Duran wins by knockout at 2 minutes 48 seconds of round number 11. He really in the late half of the fight, he really battered Floyd Mayweather. In the 9th round, he put him down once. And then Floyd gets up. To his credit, Floyd really showed a lot of guts. He got put down again in the 10th, and then stopped in the 11th. He was down twice in the 11th and counted out, which, I think that's a fair, realistic assessment. I mean, we never saw Floyd, stopped. But I think against the great Roberto Duran, I don't think it would be out of the question. One thing that, like you and Dax were saying, that you could argue is, and this is something Mike Tyson always used to say, athletes don't get worse, they get better. So you could argue that everybody from the modern era has an advantage over guys from the older eras because we know more about training, nutrition. People are just bigger and stronger. And like you said, weigh-ins are different. So now guys, what the science of boxing in a way is also a science of dehydration. If a guy knows that, hey, I can lose 12 pounds and regain it overnight, you can fight 2 divisions higher than you really would be. That wasn't really possible back in the 70s and before. So I could see why some of the older researchers think, the newer guys aren't as tough. But Dax is absolutely right. Some people just have a bias that they think that, if you were born in the 50s or 60s, you're the kind of fighter that, eats nails with no milk. I like that saying.
I like that too. He comes out with some good ones. But the thing is, well, finish. What about 100 times?
So, but that being said, of course, we're talking about major extremes here. We are talking about who I think, and a lot of people agree with us, the best lightweight ever. When they fight 100 times, Floyd does not do well. He wins only 16. And Duran wins 79 fights. They draw 5 times. Floyd is able to stop Duran 3 times out of those 16 wins. Of those 79 victories, the 135-pound Roberto Duran stopped Floyd 37 times.
Here's the big thing about the argument about fighters being tougher and they're eating nails, and Dax was wrong. They did put milk in their nail breakfast, but the thing is that the fighters of yesteryear, the sport of yesteryear, and was better, and the reason why is because they fought the better fights. Even putting aside, and I agree, I've said it myself many times, that the nutritional improvements and training techniques where they don't beat up your body, running up and down hills in work boots, chopping wood, rolling logs and big boulders around, it all worked, but it also beat the hell out of your body. They can accomplish the same thing today, less long-term damage on the bodies. I get it, and I agree with that. That technology has really helped all of our athletes. Same thing, you could take a football linebacker from the 60s and put him up against a linebacker today, and he'll run him over, and he'll be like, what was the license plate on that truck? No question. But the difference in boxing specifically is the level of competition. These guys are not fighting the fights that they used to yesteryear. Now, they're not fighting it because of the damage that those fights, the toll that it took on the fighters. That's proven. So I understand the safety aspect. As far as overall, there's no way someone can convince me, even with the training techniques and nutritional improvements, etc., that fighters of today would have beaten fighters of yesteryear, assuming you fought under those same rules as yesteryear. Today's rules are skewed towards the modern fighter, to protect the fighter. None of that was in place of the yesteryear fighters, which adds to the toughness, I believe. But that's just me. I see a lot of fighters today being coddled all the way up to the title, and then we're expected to watch a fighter develop as a champion, which is totally reverse of what happened in the years gone by. But anyway, the next fight is Floyd Mayweather Jr. at welterweight, which was his primary weight class, going up against Sugar Ray Leonard. This particular fight, again, everybody knows Floyd Mayweather, great defensive fighter, pinpoint accuracy, but his defensive skill, although everyone regards it as so great, wasn't a Lomachenko defense, like I say, or a Henry Armstrong. Well, Henry Armstrong was offensive minded, but Sugar Ray Robinson, Sugar Ray Leonard. These fighters, their defense was much better in a sense because they were still in position to inflict damage on their opponents, whereas Floyd was not. And Floyd would move out of harm's way. Yeah, you couldn't hit him. You'd hit air, but he wasn't hitting you either. The positive of Floyd's defense for an opponent is that he's not going to hit you. The negative is you can't hit him either. So I think that's important. That's an important factor for young boxing fans to understand because they've been brainwashed to think that Floyd's defensive skill was second to none, and it's just not true. His skill set and defensive prowess was good to avoid being hit, but it wasn't good in a sense where he could inflict damage on his opponent. Sugar Ray Leonard could. Now, Sugar Ray Leonard's an interesting matchup with Floyd because when you look at Sugar Ray, he too was kind of protected early on. I mean, he was the Olympic darling. He fought tough fighters early on, fighters with a lot of experience. But as soon as he got to a certain point, you can see the carefully selected opposition, not as noticeable as Floyd's, But he did fight the Floyd Seniors, the Randy Shields, Bernardo Pradas, those types of fighters that were all ranked fighters. You get up into 1979 when he really stepped it up and beat guys like Ranzani, Wilfred Benitez, Davey Boy Green, his fights with Roberto Duran, the fight with Tommy Hearns, etc., etc. He then took a 2-year layoff, came back and kind of struggled with Kevin Howard, then took a 3-year layoff and rocked your world by squeaking out a victory over marvelous Marvin Hagler. And then, he finished his career with Donnie Lalonde, which I still to this day can't get over. Tommy Hearns, another fight with him. Excuse me, a third fight with Roberto Duran. And then back-to-back losses, Terry Lawrence and Hector Camacho. How does he fare, in my opinion, against Floyd Mayweather? Well, both fighters are smart. Both can move. Both can box. I think Ray was smarter. And I think Ray packed a more powerful punch. I think his height advantage, he would have had a 2-inch height advantage over Floyd. I think his boxing skill would have equaled Floyd's. I think his boxing knowledge, knowing how to cut the ring off, would have hurt Floyd in the long run. I don't mean hurt him physically, but hurt him on the scorecards. I think Ray Leonard beats Floyd Mayweather, and I think that Ray Leonard beats him. My first selection would be by decision. I think he would outpoint Floyd, but over time, the more Floyd fought Ray Leonard would benefit Ray Leonard. I know that Floyd, learns things too, and his rematches, the few that he had, he always came back and beat them better. But I think Ray Leonard improves to the point where when they fight multiple times, Ray Leonard starts knocking out Floyd. Floyd, you mentioned, showed heart as far as the title bout game against Duran. We never saw if Floyd had heart. Floyd said he had heart, and everyone around him said he had heart, but he never put himself in a position to prove it. I don't think Floyd had heart. My opinion. I think Floyd would have showed us that he's a bully, just the way he is, and I think Ray Leonard would have brought that out. I think Ray Leonard would have frustrated him, and I give Ray Leonard the decision win in the first fight, and then I see him knocking out Floyd. How do you see it, and how did the game see it?
I do think, now again, we're talking about one of the greatest welterweights ever in Sugar Ray Leonard. Now, some people would say, oh, well, Floyd's got to be one of the greatest welterweights ever. And my answer would be, is he? Because when you look at some of his victories at welterweight, for me, the one that is, granted, some of the names, there's a lot of Hall of Famers there because you have Shane Mosley, you have Juan Manuel Marquez, you have Oscar De La Hoya, although that was sort of a catch-weight fight. Floyd came in at 150 and Goldie came in at 154. I thought his best win in terms of the guy who was in the best shape and condition at the time they fought him, even he had been defeated a couple of times, was the Zab Judah fight. And I thought that that was the toughest fight that Floyd had at welterweight, and he handled it very well. And it did show that he is able to deal with southpaws, but it's tough, especially a speedy one. That's where I think Sugar Ray Leonard has, it worlds ahead of Floyd Mayweather Jr. Because of the two of them, the thing that Floyd was a gladiator in his smaller days at 130, at 135. Then he became the Money Mayweather guy who really calculated risk. Sugar Ray Leonard, like you said, made calculated risks when he was older, like the Hagler fight, the Lalonde fight, things like that. But look at the welterweight Leonard. My God, the Duran fights, Wilfred Benitez. Come on. That is the guy who is the unmentioned fifth king of the 80s. And if you want to see an amazing fight, like you and Dax were talking about the Hagler Hearns, how that was just two skilled guys who just decided we're having a Pier 1 brawl. And skills going out the window? Well, no. Benitez Leonard, that is skill every round, and that is impressive. If you want to watch, if you do, everybody knows I'm a Mike Tyson fan, and I enjoy his podcast. He had Ray Leonard on recently, and watch that podcast. The way Mike Tyson talks about watching that Benitez fight is amazing. Mike was really touched by that. He's so emotional talking to Ray Leonard. But if you watch that fight, it's hard to think that Floyd Mayweather could handle that Ray Leonard. And that's exactly what the game thought. When they fight the first time, like you said, Sugar Ray Leonard picks up a lopsided unanimous decision, very much like with the Hearns fight. And I think, like Dax had said, it's possible that Floyd might have been able to outbox Ray Leonard in spots, but the thing about Ray Leonard was he was a gladiator. He was always a gladiator, and he'd have Angelo Dundee in that corner saying, "You're blowing it, son." And it seems like that's almost what happened in the fight, because in the last two rounds, Sugar Ray Leonard really broke it open. He had Floyd down 3 times and almost stopped in the 11th. And then he had him down once in the 12th, but Floyd holds on to lose a lopsided decision. The scores were 116-108, 115-109, and 117-107, all in favor of Sugar Ray Leonard. When they fight 100 times, Floyd picks up 25 victories. He loses 70 times to the Sugar Man. They draw 5 times, and Floyd is able to stop Ray Leonard 3 times out of those 25 victories. Ray stops Floyd 24 times out of the 70 wins.
And I swear, ladies and gentlemen, I do not know the results of these these simulations because I was kind of accurate last week. You know,
you were very close on that one.
You know, one fighter that sticks out in my mind who changed from an aggressive fighter into a Mayweather-esque fighter was Macho Camacho. I mean, you know, Camacho, if you watch his early fights, lightweight, this guy had hand speed, punching power, excitement. I mean, I couldn't wait to watch a Camacho fight. I mean, you know, Hector Camacho was the guy. I mean, I loved him. He was a New Yorker. Came in. He was outrageous with the ring walk outfits, etc. Never complained that they weighed too much. And trust me, he came in with big headsets, the whole nine. When he fought Edwin Rosario put a good old-fashioned ass beating on him. And Hector won the fight by a very controversial decision, but changed his style forever. Anybody that punches up a fight of Hector Camacho after the Rosario fight, you're going to see a very cautious boxer that used his hand speed and movement to win fights because he clearly Hall of Fame fighter. But previously, you punch in any of his early fights, and you're going to see a guy that was really just must-see TV. And you know, in all due respect to Floyd Mayweather, his earlier weights, 130, 135, like you said, Alex, he also fought not the same level of opposition, but he definitely fought a much more aggressive style. But anyway, just wanted to say that. When you say that, every time I think of that, I think of Camacho, man.
One thing I do want to just throw out there, you know, because I love language and I love the writers of this sport, is I'm pretty sure it was Steve Farhood. I remember one of the magazines after that fight was Camacho wins versus Rosario, loses nickname.
Yeah, yeah. He was beat up. That was bad. That was bad. I wonder how Steve liked my book. I sat next to him on a plane and I gave him a copy of the book. I haven't been able to reach out to him since. But anyway, okay. Now we get to the nitty-gritty. Tommy Hearns against Floyd Mayweather Jr. at junior middleweight. Floyd did have a title at junior middleweight. Tommy Hearns, way bigger, 6'1". Tommy Hearns is one of my favorite all-time fighters. No question about it. Loved the Hitman. Loved watching him. Always was nervous though. Every time I watched Tommy Hearns fight, I was nervous. What was I nervous of? That he was going to get knocked out because of his suspect chin and his chicken legs. And for a guy with the boxing ability that Thomas Hearns had, he never seemed stable on his feet. He always seemed like he was tripping over his own feet. Sort of like what I used to think of Tyson Fury in his early career. And Tyson Fury kind of tightened it up. Tommy Hearns never really did. He still kind of walked around like he was, a giraffe learning how to walk. You know, if you ever seen a baby giraffe walk around for the first time, it's kind of like Tommy Hearns. But Tommy Hearns had some freakish punching power. I compare him to Deontay Wilder, a guy that in his own weight class just demolishes people, was able to move up in weight and still demolished people. Another fighter that fought well into his golden age, winning his last fight in 2006, I believe at cruiserweight, knocking out Shannon Landberg, who had 58 wins, 10 losses, and 3 draws. But the fights against Duran and obviously Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard. Hearns against Sugar Ray Leonard. And of course, the Hagler fight all put Tommy Hearns on the map. How does he fare against Floyd Mayweather? Well, I don't think that he cuts the ring off as well because of his non-agile frame. But I do think he catches up with Floyd. I do think that he is able to utilize his arm reach and height advantage on Floyd. And I think Floyd stays away from him in the early part of the fight. Floyd runs, Tommy chases. But eventually, Tommy catches. And the punching power of Tommy Hearns is something that Floyd Mayweather Jr. would have never been able to handle. I think this is kind of easy. I think Tommy Hearns by knockout in the later rounds, if not the 11th, the 12th. How do you see it?
Dude, are you like a boxing fan or something? Because that's a pretty good assessment. Yes, I think that Floyd is in deep doo-doo in this one because, again, like with Duran at lightweight, he is dealing with arguably the very best 154-pounder that ever was. Now, Floyd has, he fought a couple of times at that weight, catchweight fights. He fought Oscar De La Hoya, a faded Oscar De La Hoya. And I thought he could have probably stopped our Oscar in that fight, but he kind of eased up on him. And then it was a mystifying split decision, I think, because people still were big fans of Oscar De La Hoya. The only other fights he had at 154 in that weight class, and he never weighed more than 151, were Saul Canelo Alvarez and Marcos Maidana. So we're talking, Saul Canelo Alvarez and Miguel Cotto. The Maidana fights were both at 147. So Mayweather is in deep here against Tommy Hearns because Tommy Hearns also is one of the tallest guys. He would have been the tallest guy that Floyd ever fought. And you're right. That's exactly what happens is Floyd can't deal with the dimensions of it, the longer, leaner, taller opponent with power. All those things make Hearns a little too much of an egg for Mayweather to crack, and Hearns cracks him. Stops him by TKO in the 8th round at 2 minutes and 5 seconds. When they fight 100 times, Floyd only picks up 15 victories. Tommy Hearns beats him 84 times. They draw once. Floyd is somehow able to stop Hearns 8 times, and Tommy Hearns puts Floyd into la-la land 51 times out of those 84 fights.
Yeah. Doesn't this is why, and it boggles my mind that the computer somehow puts Floyd at the best all-time great. I mean, this is the argument that I've had with Floyd Mayweather fans for the last 15 years. Floyd was a master at business and how to manipulate the sport of boxing. And more power to him for it. But when you get down to the nitty-gritty, he wasn't as good as people think. He just wasn't. He looked good against the perfect people to make him look good. Now, this last fight against Marvin Hagler, I will admit, is a little out of Floyd's, size. But thank you for the beauty of the Title Bout Championship computer game that would give us the fair ability to puff up Floyd Mayweather to Marvin Hagler's size. When I look at the two fighters, and you have to always include Sugar Ray Leonard when you talk about Marvin Hagler. And what I mean by that isn't so much the fight. It's the fact that they both came up together. And Sugar Ray Leonard, well, he was the media darling. He was the guy with the silver spoon, so to speak. Hagler, he was the other guy. He got nothing. He couldn't go into the Olympics. He had to turn pro because he had to put food on the table. The mentality of Marvin Hagler was just so much different. I mean, Sugar Ray Seals, he fought in his 15th pro fight, would go on to fight him a bunch of times. Cyclone Hart, he beat. Johnny Baldwin, he beat. Willie Monroe, the real Willie Monroe, the Pearl, beat him. Benny Briscoe, they have an award for him. Mike Colbert, beats him. Did have one draw against Sugar Ray Seals. Bobby Watts split 2 fights with him. Alan Minter, when he won the title. Fluenzio, I can't even pronounce his name. Beat him. All right. Well, you know me. All right.
What was that name?
Yeah, it's about him. Yeah, Fluenzio. Vito Anafermo, Mustafa Hamshaw, Caveman Lee, not a household name. But
that guy.
I know. But he was good. He destroyed him in 1 round. But he was good going into the fight. And Duran, and Roldan, and Hamshaw, Tommy Hearns, John the Beast Mugabe, and then yeah. I mean, look at the fight. I mean, you can't listen. Nobody could take anything away from Hagler. And when he fought Leonard, look, I said for the longest time it was a robbery, and I thought that the fight was a draw, that it shouldn't have gone to Sugar Ray Leonard. We did this. We all met at Canastota, and we all scored it. There was a bunch of us that sat in there with no sound. It luckily turned out that we had no sound. We were trying to get sound, but we ended up with no sound. And it was kind of amazing to see, especially Alex, if you've never met him, he's got a life-size tattoo of Marvin Hagler all over him. I mean, he's got Marvin Hagler pajamas he wears, and he was crushed that his scorecard changed after watching again. I luckily maintained my draw. I still believe should have been a draw, and I believe there should have been a rematch. And the fact that the powers that be and this particular fight changed boxing forever, because up until this fight, you had to really beat the champion to win the belt. And since this fight, we've seen it change hands many times where the winner didn't decisively beat him. But the worst part of it is it pissed off Marvin Hagler so much, we lost him. We never saw him again. And maybe that adds to his legacy. How does a fight against Floyd Mayweather Jr. go? Not well for Floyd. I think Marvin Hagler, if anyone had a chance to beat Hagler of these fights, I would think Floyd did. His boxing ability, I think would have given Hagler trouble because Hagler did seem to have trouble with pure boxers, although he didn't have much trouble with Tommy Hearns because Tommy Hearns fought the Hagler fight. And then you could make the argument that Hagler fought the Leonard fight when he fought Leonard, but that's a whole nother story. Hagler against Floyd Mayweather Jr. Well, first of all, Floyd hates southpaws. Hagler was a southpaw. Floyd was not going to hurt Hagler. The only thing that I have fear about in this fight is that Hagler chases him around the ring for 12 or 15 rounds, whatever. But he eventually catches him, and he works the body. He hurts him. I think he destroys Floyd. Despite Floyd's ability, his boxing ability, I think Marvin Hagler, which was just too vicious, and it's just a bigger version of Roberto Duran, I do think he catches up with him. I think that Marvin Hagler knocks out Floyd Mayweather Jr. In mid-rounds, mid to late rounds. I think that the early rounds is Floyd's only chance, and he just panics, and he shows that he has no heart, and Hagler wears him and beats him down. I predict Hagler knockout easily over Floyd Mayweather Jr. How do you see it, and how did Title Bout see it?
This is I of course, am biased, like you said, because I have a full-size tattoo of Marvin, and I do think that he, Floyd's never fought at this weight, so he's out of his league in terms of size. That being said, his boxing ability would give, and speed especially, would give Hagler some difficulty. But I think that, like you said, just the strength and the size would be too much for Floyd at middleweight. And so the game agrees. Not by stoppage, though, at least the first time they fight. Hagler definitely dominates him. He wins unanimous decision by 3 scores of 116 to 112. He did put Floyd down in the 12th, but Floyd finishes the fight. When they fight 100 times, Floyd only wins 16. Marvin Hagler wins 83. They draw once, and somehow Floyd is able to stop Marvin 6 times. I had to convince myself that was on cuts, so I was able to go to sleep last night. And of Hagler's 83 victories, he knocks Floyd out 37 times.
I watched Hagler get hurt one time in every fight that I've ever seen of Hagler, and that was the Tommy Hearns fight. And that was the only time I ever said, oh, my God, Hagler he staggered him. But then it only lasted for a second or two, and then Hagler, the rest is history. But I can't see Floyd. Floyd, first of all, what would happen to Floyd's little girly hands should he land a shot on the noggin of Marvin Hagler? They would have shattered like glass, man. I mean, there's no way.
Yeah. And one thing, just as a little dessert here, I couldn't resist. Like I mentioned, I thought Benitez was really one of the badasses of the 80s that doesn't get enough credit. So I wanted to see how would Benitez and Floyd do at 140. Floyd actually the first fight is Floyd wins a majority draw in the first fight. He comes up, the scores are 118, 111, and then one score that is, he wins a split decision the first fight. One score is even, 115 even. The other score is 115, 114 for Floyd, and the third, this must be the PBC judge, had it 118, 111 in favor of Floyd. When they fight 100 times, Floyd gets the better of Benitez. He wins 48. Benitez wins only 43, and they draw 9 times. Floyd is able to stop Benitez 7 times, and in his 43 victories, Benitez stops Floyd 8 times. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And one thing I should mention is that the game, I think, it definitely seems that more so than the video game that we talked of, that you and Dax were talking about earlier, this game seems to be much more researchers friendly, because it definitely gives, I don't think this game would come up with Winky Wright knocking out Carlos Monzon or Sugar Ray Leonard. I don't think you'd get that in the Title Bout Championship bout game. One thing that we recently did is IBRO, the International Boxing Research Organization, just published their latest all-time great rankings. They did a whole big poll of all a lot of the members, and it was put together and organized by historian Monty Cox. And when you look at where Floyd landed in a lot of those rankings, I think the game is pretty good, because Floyd ended up only number 22 in the pound-for-pound all-time greats. Now, that is arguable. That more is just how great a fighter they were, how well-known, things like that. It's not necessarily means that he's, better than Sugar Ray Robinson, that kind of thing. But he only scored down at number 22. At 154 pounds, Floyd ranked 9th all-time. The number 1, Tommy Hearns. At 147, Floyd ranked 13th all-time. Number 1, Sugar Ray Robinson. Number 2, Sugar Ray Leonard. Floyd at 140 was below the cut. He didn't even make it in the top 10. The way Ibro did it was they did the top 20 in the classic weight classes, and in the junior classes they did a top 10. And in that, at 140 pounds, Aaron Pryor was number 1 of all time. At 130, Floyd is number 3 all time. Alexis Arguello is number 1. Julio Cesar Chavez is number 2. Check out that all-time great list at 130 pounds. Wow, a lot of talent there. And then finally, at 135 pounds, Floyd is ranked 18th, according to Ibro. And who's number 1? Roberto Duran.
In my all-time great, I have Floyd, 25th, if at best. The thing that gets me is the computer rankings as of today. BoxRec, the all-time great pound for pound. They got Floyd number 1. Henry Armstrong's not even on this list. He's not even in the top 50, which is ridiculous. So he's not even in the list. But Sam Langford's down at number 42. Tommy Hearns is number 28. Sugar Ray Robinson is number 4, behind Carlos Monzon. Manny Pacquiao number 2. Now, my all-time great has Manny Pacquiao above Floyd Mayweather. And the reason why is simple. I know the head-to-head means a lot, but, I do put an asterisk next to that fight. Floyd was 100%, Manny wasn't. That's not Floyd's fault, okay? Manny's fault. He shouldn't have fought. But Manny has fought the tougher opposition, and he continues to do so. What really catapulted him, in my opinion, above Floyd, all-time great, was his last win against Keith Thurman. I think that says it all. Floyd hasn't fought a major, fighter in years. Andre Berto was washed up when he fought him. An MMA guy, give me a break. But interesting to see that the computer has Floyd number 1, and some all-time greats that I think are way up there, kind of down on the list. Hagler's number 13. Roberto Duran's number 12. Harry Greb is all the way at number 18. Jack Johnson, number 22. Sam Langford, like I said, number 42. And Terrence Crawford is number 49. Just hitting the 50th was Michael Spinks. One guy I was glad to see in there, Nicolino Loche at number 46. But no disrespect to Max Schmeling. He was at number 47. I mean, he was a good heavyweight, but all-time great, pound for pound, I don't know. But interesting the way the computer shakes out, Alex.
One thing I did want to throw out there is I did also run, if you look at the transnational boxing rankings, right now they have Errol Spence as number 1 welterweight on earth. And when Floyd fights him, Floyd wins. When they fight 100 times, Floyd wins 75, 16 losses, 9 draws. He stops Spence 10 times, and of his 16 wins, Errol Spence is able to stop Floyd 3 times. So that's Floyd against a current guy.
Yeah, well, I don't know. But anyway, I don't know.
I should have stopped on the Benito.
Yeah, you should have left it alone there. But in any event, well, we'll see what we're in for next week, Alex. Who knows if this Corona virus keeps going? We may be doing more breakdowns. Maybe putting some pound for pound guys against each other. But I thought that this would be fun to see Floyd against the Fab-four, and according to my predictions, Floyd doesn't beat any of them. So right. I know I'll get some, flack over that. But in any
Yeah,
event,
I mean, the one that he did the most even was against Benitez, and but the other guys, yeah, I mean, he only wins about 20%, not even 20% of his fights.
he just wasn't as good, and that era was better, you know. So I mean, and they fought each other. See, that's the key. I think that you have to keep in perspective. You know, the previous eras to the Floyd changing the way boxing works is that they did fight each other. The big fights were made. Forget the promoters hating each other. They've been hating each other for 100 years, but they still, you know, liked each other enough to put together the fight that everyone wanted to see. That doesn't happen today, and it hurts the sport. But in any event, Alex, appreciate all your hard work, and we'll look forward to next week, brother.
Sounds good. Take care, Billy C.
All right, that's my main man, Alex Papali, and did a great job on the simulations through Title Bout, and that was fun. You know, I want to thank my man Rick for getting us into that. And you know, I mean, you know, the truth of the matter is you know, people call me a hater when it comes to Floyd Mayweather, but the truth is the truth. I mean, the guy avoided a lot of the big fights, and you know, kind of cheated us a little bit. But in any event, hey, listen, I just want to extend my prayers to everybody. I hope everyone stays safe amid this worldwide crisis we're dealing with, and stay strong. Boxing and all other sports will emerge. Hopefully the economies will, and we'll go from there. But hey, listen, we will be back next week. So make sure you tune in the same bat time and the same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.